Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are in Shmos, chapter 12, verse 26. We're discussing the Kli Yakar regarding this famous question that the pasuk seems to be the question of the wicked son, and we're not citing the answer given to the wicked son. So besides those classic questions, the Kli Yakar posed three questions on this pasuk, which I confess I've been racking my brains for the last 3 minutes to try to remember what the Kli Yakar's questions were yesterday, but now I remember them, Baruch Hashem. So the first was, why does it say in verse 27, Va'amartem, and you should say, and it doesn't say, and you should say to the child? In other words, it sounds like a freestanding statement. One question. Second question, at the end of verse 25, it says you should guard this service. What an interesting word to use. You should guard this service. How about you should observe this service? You should do it. I say you should guard. And finally, in verse 26, why does it refer to the children asking you as opposed to the child asking you? The other examples in the Torah of these questions that we're drawing on for the four sons are all in the singular, and this one is in the plural. So continuing in the Kli Yakar, Elavadai, in my layout, it's something like the third paragraph. It's probably around 30 lines into the Kli Yakar. Elavadai, rather certainly, Shakan Medaber Bisman Shiakumu Harbe Banim Soverim. We're discussing a time where many rebellious children rise up. The Yachshavu Laros Pinas Avodazu, and they try to destroy the foundation of the service of God. Ulahashbes Esa'am Mulachas Avodas Hashem Yisbarach, and try to bring the nation away from the service of God. Ubavur Osam Maharsim Sricho Avoda Shmira Bioser. And for those people who are trying to destroy the foundations of observant Judaism, connected to such a thing as bringing a sacrifice to God, there needs to be extremely careful shmira, guardianship. So he says that's what it's talking about at the end of 25. Ushmartem beswavodah azos. You need to guard this service. Vial also dor sorer amar shmartem beswavodah azos tishmuru osashlo teharis. Viacharkach bier ve'ezes man tzrich avodah shimur. So now we're explaining when is going to be the time where you need to be exceptionally diligent, that nothing is shaken at the foundations. I'll say Amar, and this it says, when your children say to you, what do you need this service for? Ratzalomar, when there's numerous people rising up, not just one child asking a question, but numerous people rising up, and they're saying, what do you need this for? That's where it says you should guard the service. See, if it's just one person questioning and one person speaking sarcastically, you don't need to guard the service for one person. You respond however you respond. But when it's a movement trying to cancel out everything that's been happening for all these generations, that's a different story. Indeed, says the Kli Yakar, the following pasuk, and you should declare that this is an offering to God, is, as we suspected, a freestanding verse. Because Reb Shimon Gamliel said, the famous quote from the Haggadah, Reb Shimon Gamliel says that a person needs to talk about these three things at the Seder: Pesach, Matzah, and Maror. Uminala Reb Shimon Gamliel lomar kein shnosaf al asiyas hamitzvos bepoal chayvu lomar l'saper bepeme inyanam. How does he know that? How does Reb Shimon Gamliel know that we have to talk about these things? You want to tell me we need to do these things? Of course we have to do these things. It's Pesach in the Torah. But how does he know that we have to talk about these things? Vadai lomad zem in pasuk v'amartem zevach Pesach. So he says, Reb Shimon Gamliel learned it from this pasuk, from verse 27, that you state this is a Pesach offering, not necessarily stating to any one person, but just saying the words out loud. He says that's how Reb Shimon Gamliel knows you have to say the words out loud. Shut sivui al ha'amira bepeh. Nosaf al asiyah. This is an instruction more than just doing, saying. So how do I know that I have to talk about the matzah and the maror also? It only talking about the Korban Pesach here. Okay, Nemar Achar Kach, V'gada to Levincha Bayimu Lemor, Bavrizeh Aso Hashem Li B'Tzeis Mitzrayim. V'Dorash, Bal Haggadah Bavrizeh Lo Amarti El B'Shosh Yishmatzu Mar Lefonecha. Kasha said, okay, so he says the pasuk that we have in a few psukim from now that you should tell your child, or a little bit down the road, you should tell your child, because of this, God took me out of Egypt. Because of what? Because of the matzah and the maror, Pesach matzah and maror. So the idea is that that's included later on in this pasuk. Okay, so I just want to summarize for a second. So what he's saying is that there's going to be a time we have to guard the practice of the Korban Pesach very, very carefully. That's going to be when there's a whole wave of people coming, questioning the basis and the necessity for such a service. And at that time, you need to just declare, and by the way, according to the Kliyakar, it's not at that time only, it's in general, but part of the instructions, you declare the importance of the Korban Pesach. Ulefizen, based on this, lo huskar b'Torah dayin shum shuva l'rasha ra. If you understand the psukim in this way, we don't have a response at all to the wicked child. We didn't respond to anything. He asked Mo'avodah Zos Lachem, and all the Torah says is, oh, this is a pasuk you should say in general when you bring the Korban Pesach, when you're eating the Korban Pesach. There was no response to the wicked child. The Das Bal Haggadah Shepasuk V'gata Levincha Tshuva Leben Harasha. So therefore, the Haggadah assumes that the pasuk a little bit later, V'gada to Levincha Bayomu Lemor, you should tell your child on that day, for this purpose, God took me out. God did for me when He took me out of Egypt. It's referring both to the wicked son and the one who doesn't know to ask. Kikashal divrei Bal Haggadah shadarash pasuk zal misha enu de alishol minali lomar shaben shosek machma she'enu de alishol shamu shosek machma shu rasha gamur. Okay. Yeah. So he says, okay, Eino muvan milashon li. Vadiuk tali bedas habein hayoshev lefanov. Kim zeben ashosik rasha hu vavoda in nechshavas tuklum be'einav a shapir beduyik leave lolo. Fishamelo shabavur avoda zu. Right. Okay. Okay. So I'm sorry. This is a lot. This is a lot here. Okay. So let me just sum this up a little bit before we go on to his next answer. So he says, so we've decided that Amartam Zevach Pesach is not the answer to the wicked child. So what is the answer to the wicked child? V'gada to Levincha, tell your child, for this reason God did for me in Egypt. But we use that for two people. We use that both for the wicked child and for the one who doesn't know how to ask. And says the Kliyakar, the reason is because li could mean two very different things. Li for me. It could mean God did this for me and not for you, which is the famous pshat of what we say to the wicked child. But it could also be that the child is just sitting there. It's not that they're being disrespectful, but they just don't know. They don't understand anything enough to even pose an intelligent question. So all we can do then is model. So let me explain to you why this is important to me. And hopefully the more we model, the more the child processes. So that's how the Kliyakar understands what that God is doing over here. Okay. I think what we should do, with your indulgence, I think we should go back to the Pesachim. I think we spent a lot of time on this Kliyakar. If there's time tomorrow, maybe we'll go back to some other answers, but I thought hopefully it was interesting for people. Okay, verse 28. So Moshe Rabbeinu has given instructions to Jewish people regarding the Korban Pesach, and then it says, Vayelchu vayasu b'nei Yisrael, and the Jewish people went, Kasher tzivu Hashem es Moshe v'Aaron kain asu. As God commanded Moshe and Aaron, so they did. So we have twice in this pasuk that the Jewish people did. Jumps out at you. Why does it have to say twice the Jewish people did? Or hachayim, pasuk kafkas, vayelchu kain asu. Chutzmach lomer kain asu v'lo hispek mashakidim lomer vayasu. It wasn't enough to just say they did it. Lomar, to teach, hitzdiku b'maaseim b'mitzvos Hashem, that in their actions they absolutely justified the commandment of God. They did not misunderstand anything. It's very interesting. So I could ask one of my children to bring up a specific box from the sub-basement of the Pesach stuff and put it down next to the couch in the living room. I could ask my child to do that. This is theoretical, by the way. And my child could bring the box up and put it in the kitchen. Question, did my child do what I said or not? The answer is sort of. The child basically did what I said. So the Orach Chaim says the meaning of the pasuk is as follows. If it would have just said once Vayasu, they did it, it means they did the Korban Pesach. The child brought up the box. They did the Korban Pesach. By saying Kain Asu, so they did it at the end of the pasuk, we're actually saying they did it to the T. So that's how the Orach Chaim understands the pasuk. And it's not only, says the Orach Chaim, a statement about their willingness and desire to observe the will of God, but actually it's something else besides it. The Orach Chaim says it also means that they understood it. They really got it. And that presumably speaks to certain spiritual connectivity and diligence. Okay, verse 30. So now it's showtime. The Jewish people did the Korban Pesach. It's midnight in Egypt. Vayakam Paro Laila. Paro got up at the night. He, all of his servants. I should actually read 29 first. And it was in the middle of the night. God struck all the firstborn in Egypt. A to Z, all the firstborns in Egypt, even the firstborn animals. Verse 30. Vayakam Paro Laila. Paro got up at night. He, all of his servants, all of Egypt. There was a great call out in Egypt. There's a great shout. Chaos. There was no house in which there wasn't someone dead. Very scary. Just something to think about for a second. We set the stage in verse 29 that this was in the middle of the night when this happened. And then it says in verse 30, Paro got up in the night. Right. We said in the previous pasuk it was the middle of the night. And then we said Paro got up. You wouldn't have thought that Paro got up hours later when there's utter chaos in Egypt. Why does that say Paro got up in the night? But we'll talk about that tomorrow, God willing. But for today, let's see the Ramban on Pasuk Lamed. There was no house in which there wasn't a dead person. How could there be no house in which there wasn't a dead person? How many lahavdil? How many families do you know have a firstborn son? I don't know. I don't know. What are the statistics of it? 1 in 3, 1 in 4. I don't know. I mean, it's not like it doesn't happen. It's not like every household is that way. So what does it mean in the pasuk that there wasn't a house, that there wasn't an Egyptian house that there wasn't a dead person in? So we will discuss this tomorrow, God willing. At least we have questions. We continue today with the Kli Yakar regarding that question from the Agada Sukkim. Okay. Before I close off the recording, I just want to do a little bit of administrative notes so we're all on the same page. First of all, I want to take this opportunity to wish my parents a wonderful Pesach, a safe trip. My parents won't be with us tomorrow morning, God willing. We will meet tomorrow morning, despite the fact that my parents won't be joining us. We will meet tomorrow morning. We will not meet Friday morning, okay? And we will meet through Chol HaMoed, God willing. The morning group will meet through Chol HaMoed. Okay.